All right, so now we have a model and table made in our database, and now it's time to actually create and store some data. So what we're going to be doing is what are called the CRUD operations, and are common across any kind of database. And it's C for create, so creating new items in the database, read for reading items out of the database, update for updating items in the database, and deleting items out of the database. So these are kind of the basic operations that you'll typically use to interact with the database. And Django gives us this nice way that we can interact with our data. So instead of having to write SQL commands like select star from table, we can just use what is called a model manager. And by default, it's called objects. And we get this model manager because we inherit from this models.model class, this class model. And what this model manager lets us do is all of these CRUD operations, but just using Python. So we can do things like listing out all of the items in a database. And to use this model manager, since we inherited from it in this job postings class, we can use it on this job posting class. So we could say job posting, and then we have access to this objects model manager, this objects class. And then within this class, we have the ability to do a lot of these CRUD operations. So you can do things like type all to get all the objects from the database, or job posting.objects.get to get one item from the database. And you could specify which item you want. We could say the ID equals 1, so that'll get the first item. We could also do things like filter title equals job title to get all of the objects that have this title job title. And you can filter this by, any field you want. So where company is ABC Tech. And Django also comes with a shell so that we can interact with our project just from the terminal. So to do that, we're going to open up our terminal, make sure your virtual environment's running and activated. And then we're going to type python manage.py shell. And now we get the shells, and we want to first import this job posting. So from the app name, jobboard.models for this model file, import job posting. So now we have this job posting class imported, and we can use this model manager, this objects, to interact with the data. So if we just do job posting.objects and then the .all method, you can see that we get this query set, which is just a list-like object and is what's returned from the database. And you can see right now it's empty. But we can create our first job posting. So if we go job posting.objects.create, then we can pass in the values we want to create this job posting with. So we could say title equals a job title. Let's just look at the fields really quickly. Description equals first job. Company equals, we'll just say ABC Tech. And then the salary, this is a integer, so it equals 75,123. Then we click enter. And now we can see that this job posting item has been created in the database. And now if we run that very first command, job posting.objects.all, we get this query set, and the item is this job posting object 1, which we saw right here. Amazing. And now we can update this item. So we could say job equals job posting.objects.get to get a single item from the database. And we could say ID equals 1, because this was the first item we created, so it'll have an ID of 1. And now if we just print out job, it's that first job, and we can update its kind of values just by using dot notation. So we could say job.description. We can take a look at the description first. It's first job. If we go job.description equals a good first job, click enter. Now if we type job.save, it'll actually save that in the database. So if we type job.description, again, a good first job. The one thing to note is that until you type job.save, it doesn't actually save it in the database. And we can also delete things. So we could say job.delete. And now if we go job posting.objects.all, we don't see that job anymore. So awesome. So play around with this a bit. The Django docs have all of the different operations that you can do listed out nicely. But create a few more jobs, update some of them, delete some of them. It'll be good practice. And in the next video, we'll add another field to this database that's super important. So I'll see you in the next one.